Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Leadership and Politics with Dr. Abraham. With me is the best-selling author, Larry Levine. He's going to share his insights with us on sales and how to sell from the heart. Larry, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's so good to be here. I'm looking forward to this. Anytime I can hang out with somebody close to where I live, I'm all over it.
Well, it's very true. We are very close by. But isn't it amazing? We are even closer with Zoom. So it's like we connect in a few seconds. You connect. But thank you for taking the time to do this. I know how busy you are with your podcasts and everything you do. But it's nice to see you, and it's nice to connect with you and share your insights with our audience.
Here's what's interesting, and I think this is a good way just to kind of just share. So isn't this interesting with the situation that's going on as we're recording this, that you can still build relationships, you can still connect with people, even though we physically can't see each other. We can still connect, we can still converse, we can still have impactful conversations. It all starts up here.
So connecting with others is really important to, first, the mental health. Second is both of us, and you're on your podcast and here on the show, we provide service by helping others to learn, because these insights you provide, they're not going to go to waste. There's somebody going to pick up an idea of these shows. They pick up an idea, right, and they build on them. Our intention is good. Intention is to enlighten, to educate, to inform, and also to meet. Like, it's good to meet you, and I wish with time you're close by. Like half an hour from here.
Yeah, and that's actually right now it's a half an hour because there's not that many people on the freeway.
No, there's no traffic. Exactly.
Sometimes it's a painful drive to get to where you are.
That's especially on the Woodland Hills area. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself. For those who don't know Larry Levine, tell us, who is Larry Levine?
You know what? I'm never one to brag about myself, but
this is your chance. This is your chance. And best promotion is self-promotion.
No, I'm not a braggadocious type person. I always say I grew up in the sales world. I'm just an average guy, a determination and a drive to succeed in a crazy sales world. And I learned this a long time ago. I spent almost 30 years in the office technology space, all in the Los Angeles marketplace, completely chaotic, dysfunctional. I always say full of broken promises and busted dreams. I saw high turnover. I saw commoditized, sales market out there, and rightfully so, because a lot of the salespeople and the leaders did it to themselves. I was really cognizant of my surroundings when I was in my younger days, starting my sales career off. There's one thing I started to pay attention to. It's not that I was eavesdropping, but I was really cognizant of what was going on in sales.
You were observing. You were in the observation mode.
Right. And I have this, you used a word just a little bit ago about intention. I was really intentional with paying attention to my surroundings, how people are carrying themselves, how are they carrying conversations, how are they taking care of customers, the issues and challenges that I saw going on in the bullpen. And I did something, and I always say I wasn't the smartest guy out there, but I was real keen. I was real astute to what was happening. I asked a lot of questions, and I did the complete polar opposite of everybody else. So what I mean by that is all the issues and challenges, all the moaning and groaning that people were doing in sales, I would ask why. And I would always ask why? Because once I knew I started asking all these why questions, I really got to the root of what was causing them.
So there was something in the environment you didn't like, and you start questioning that from within.
And for one simple reason, I'm a big believer in that perception's reality. That's just what goes on in my head. Perception's reality. I was developing a perception of what was going on as a young, impressionable salesperson on the sales teams that I was on. I started to ask questions, and I said, you know what, there has to be a better way of doing this. So what I did is I took it upon myself, and I was on more dysfunctional sales teams with more dysfunctional management than I care to even think about. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes back to how I was raised. My dad was a rocket scientist for the U.S. Air Force. And so he had a PhD in aeronautical physics from 2 Ivy League schools by the time he was 20. And I was raised in a household where education was at the utmost of importance. And I rebelled against all of it. And I'm tying this all together because it formed my approach to sales. I always wanted the answers to things. if I was struggling in school, I'd just go to my dad and say, hey, Dad, tell me the answer. And he goes, it doesn't work that way. I'm not
Good for
telling you
him.
the answer. Out of this way, I highly respect him. We may not agree on certain things, but I bring this up because he taught me the discipline and the drive behind thinking for myself and figuring things out, even if it was tough and even if it taxed me.
Mhm.
And that's the same thing that I did in sales. Is I saw really quickly that I would go to management for answers and I really wasn't getting the answers.
Mhm.
I wasn't getting the help, guidance. So I did a lot of inner retrospective stuff, and I go, you know what? I'm going to hold myself accountable to figure it out, and I'm going to become my own best manager. And I held myself to a high degree of accountability.
Mhm.
And I took that out into the marketplace on how I carried myself, the conversations I got involved with, how I was helping people. And pretty soon, as I started to build up a customer base, I started to ask my customers, what do they like? What do they don't like about salespeople? What's a great experience?
What were you selling? Were you selling a product or a service?
I was selling
Copiers.
both. So, in the
Mhm.
office technology space, I was
Mhm.
selling a product and I was selling the service that went along
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm.
And, heck, I sold things that broke.
Mhm.
Literally, I sold copying equipment my whole career. Copiers break,
Yeah, exactly.
and they break at the inopportune times. But I'm saying this is because the product and the service were the end result. I couldn't get there unless I built a relationship and I made somebody feel comfortable enough in sharing with me uncomfortable things going on in their office. I learned that a long time ago,
Mhm.
that the more I showed appreciation, the more I respected them, the more I showed I care and I was there to really help them, the more they opened up, which was the complete polar opposite of what most people do in sales, even to this day.
So you brought the value you learned at home to an environment that really didn't connect. You had no connection between what your value, what your dad taught you, to an environment which is cutthroat environment. So the sales, as we used to know, until your book came along and other books that preaches certain, it was a cutthroat. I have to sell. It's only me. That I don't care much about the consumer. If I did care, I gave them a lip service. It wasn't from the heart. And then you come along and you come with selling from the heart, right? You put a book together, a best-selling book, selling from the heart. Tell me about the premise of the book and why did you write it?
After spending 28 years in the office technology channel, I always say you always have you have an aha moment. But at 50 years old, I was fired from a high-paying corporate sales job. I'm 55 years old now. So at 50 years old is the very first time I was ever fired from a job, even if I go back to high school. And that
Why?
was,
Why did they fire you?
I would say, reduction in force. But it was just, we always have those, we have these moments where we have to pick ourselves up. And I know your listeners, that we've all been there, right? We've all dealt with things that happened to us. So at 50 years old, and that's just 4.5, 5 years ago, I'm faced the first time ever figuring out, what am I going to do with myself? So after a couple of days of crying and really figuring out, what do I do? My wife, grabs me by the collar and she says, hey, come on, you got to shake this off.
Exactly.
And I sat down, I did a lot of self-reflection, and it would have been easy for me to go back into the world that I knew, become a vice president of sales somewhere, and just ride off into the sunset. My wife told me, you're going to be bored. 6 months later, you're going to be bored.
She knows you already. She knows who you are and what.
She already knows me.
Yeah.
And, now he's my podcast partner, but Daryl Amy is a very close friend of mine. And I was just tapping networks, really looking for, who does somebody know that I can have a conversation with and so forth, and explore some opportunities. And it's about 2 weeks into this, Daryl goes, you know something, Larry? He goes, you got to teach salespeople what made you you. You were real, you were genuine, you were caring. You brought respect and appreciation to the marketplace. And you did that in a digital world. Why don't you go out and coach salespeople on what you did?
Good.
Never done it before. Zero, right? I flipped a switch in a couple weeks. I always say I threw 50-pound weights on my ankles and I jumped into the deep end of a swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
I had no customers, no business, no anything other than I go, okay, I'm going to give this a shot.
Put me at that moment of time.
And I started to learn.
Larry, put me at that moment of time. What motivated you at that moment? What was the it? I know you're curious because of what, based on you're asking all these questions, you're a curious individual, without a doubt. What motivated you at that moment, in addition to the wife's reminders and telling you you're the best and you can do it? What made you do it? And what motivated you then?
Well, a couple things. One personal thing motivated me, and then I'll take you down that road. Is, growing up with a dad who was a rocket scientist, who was very successful, is I always had him sitting on my shoulder going, am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Right? Expectations. It's
Mm-hmm.
what I placed on me, right? But I always had to go, am I living up to his expectations? Now I'm without a job, right? Okay, now what? I'm going to try this, and then I'm going to prove to my dad that I can succeed by taking a bad situation and flipping it around and turning it into a positive. And that was one of the driving factors. The other one was, in a short period of time, I had to take some self-reflection, and I looked back and I said, you know what? In all the decades I spent in sales, there was not one manager, not one leader, not one business owner that helped me become the best version of myself. What happens if I brought what I envision in working with people? What if I brought that to the forefront and I brought that message to the sales world? It took me a year and a half. It took me literally from about 2016 to the middle of 2017 to finally realize that the sales world was starting to get the message. And it was right then and there, April 2017. I was sitting in a hotel room. I was getting ready to speak, and I was having coffee with Daryl, who's now my podcast partner. And I asked Daryl, I said, hey, you want to start a pod? And this is how Selling from the Heart was born. And it leads into, I'm giving you a little backstory on it, but it'll take your listeners on a little journey. And I'm sitting there, I said, hey, Daryl, you want a podcast? And he goes, what are two people going to even talk about? What are two ex-copier guys going to talk about that anyone's going to listen to? I said, I'm a big believer in this. Everybody has a story and it needs to be told. We're just going to share our stories. He goes, okay, what are we going to call this podcast? 30 seconds later, I said, we're calling it Selling from the Heart. He goes, I'm in. When do you want to start? And so we started talking about it. And then about 5 minutes later, he goes, Larry, where the hell did you pull out Selling from the Heart from? And I go, I lived it. I said, that's what I brought to my clients. That's what I brought to my marketplace. That's what we're going to bring out. And he goes, I'm all in. April 2017 in the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas, Selling from the Heart's born.
Before you continue on this, what does Selling from the Heart mean to you? What is it?
You're flipping that one around, because that's the first question we ask people on our show. So high five on that one.
High five.
Yeah, there you go. So to me, Selling from the Heart's about bringing in sincerity. It's about bringing substance to the forefront. It's about truly caring. I call it giving a rip. To me, Selling from the Heart means deeply caring for somebody, wearing your emotions on your sleeves, being able to look somebody, I'm there for you in good times, and I'm there for you in bad times. I'm here to truly mean it. And I say this because there's so many people that say it, but they don't do it. They don't live it.
Be genuine and real.
Genuine and real. And I'm not, I always say chapter 10 of my book's about not being an empty suit. And I tie these both in. If we look at what we're going through together as a society right now, if there's ever been a time where heart's been placed at the forefront, it's right now. What I'm bringing I'm deeply committed to this and leading a revolution. I want to bring authenticity to the forefront in the sales profession. The sales profession is a great profession. It really is. And, we were talking before, we started recording this. To me, sales is about help. It's the art of helping somebody. And in order to help somebody, you got to deeply care. You have to give a rip about that person. You have to be committed to really help them. And I always say, I don't have a doctorate. I don't have a PhD in psychology. I don't have a master's in human behavior. I have none of that, full disclosure. I share with people, I have a PhD from getting the crap kicked out of me my whole life, selling copiers. In a highly competitive dog-eat-dog world, what I brought to the forefront, what I'm bringing today, into the sales profession is people want to know that you care. People want to know that you're there for them, that you truly want to help them, that you're leading with dignity, that you're there to help them do better business, that you're not just there to cash a commission check. And people can smell it. They really can. You know, I call it a sixth sense. People can smell sincerity instantaneously, but they can smell insincerity just fast.
True. Give me a scenario where we apply same product. First one selling from the heart. Second one is a traditional way of selling a product. What are we adding? What value are we adding to the profession? Two scenarios.
Yeah, I think the I'll go to the second one first. I think,
Okay.
you know, a lot of times what happens is we have these transactional product centric conversations most of the time. Conversations are all about that person. When I say that person, the salesperson, or it's all about the company, it's all about the product. It's transactional in nature. And there's a time and the place. I'm not discrediting transactional conversations because they are applicable in certain points. But transactional, product centric, all about me conversations, there's no differentiation because everyone's saying it. So I'm all about, if you can take those conversations and transform those conversations, which means that it may not be a sales conversation right up front. My big concern is, and I think those that stand out are really competent in how they engage and drive conversation at a business level. Right. And I always say this, there's a big difference between product-centric conversations and transformational conversations. And what I always held myself accountable to is this. And it's proven its point time and time again, is the more comfortable that I make somebody feel, the more comfortable they will share uncomfortable things in their office. The more I can connect to somebody, the more I can relate to somebody on their level, the more I can place me and my conversations in their shoes and look at things through their point of view, the more they're going to open up. There's a big difference in the outcome. Those product-centric transactional conversations, more often than not, get driven right to price.
And they're affected by the price and commission. I like the way you put transactional and transformational, and these are leadership concepts. So in a way, you brought these concepts and you put them into the sales force and you morph them into whatever you want them to be, provided the transformational approach has to be genuine, authentic. There's no nonsense.
Because man, heart, empathy, I get it. It's just too mushy. It's too gushy. It's
for
too
the weak.
touchy-feely. It's for the weak, right? But it's actually the complete polar opposite.
Exactly.
Bringing heart, bringing sincerity, bringing empathy, bringing deep compassion and caring for your customers is a sign of freaking strength.
It's being civilized. I mean, that's the way to do it, to deal with another human being.
Yes. Yeah.
You talked about empathy without even mentioning the word, when you said you feel what they feel, you know. So empathy is part of this transformational concept you promoted, or you're promoting through the selling from the heart. You have to feel what they feel. If they don't want to buy, so be it. But we can find another customer, but we don't have to force this consumer to buy something they don't need.
Yeah, you know, you see, you bring up a great point. There's a couple of things can I expand on that if you don't mind?
Sure.
And I'm not bringing rocket science to this by no means, but I always share with salespeople out there, if you want to have an ever-flowing sales funnel, you have to build an ever-flowing relationship funnel. Think about that for a second, because when your sales funnel, and I just see this, you know, the more I work with sales leaders and sales teams and individual coaching that I do, is salespeople start to panic when there's very little things in their funnel. Mm-hmm. When there's very few opportunities in their funnel, they latch onto those few opportunities and they don't let them go. And it may be bad fit, right? Not the right time. And they force things, they reduce price just to try to make a sale. I always encourage, if you want to have that ever-flowing sales funnel every single day as a sales professional, you must be speaking to new people, building new relationships, making new connections, getting to know more people inside your accounts. I always say this, the more that you know, the more you grow. The more you know about your clients, the more you grow with your clients.
The more you know, the more you grow. I like this concept. That's a good motto. Do you use that, or you just made it up?
No, I use it all the time.
I thought we're sharing something new with the with
No,
the
no, but I, and here's where I picked up on this. This goes back a long time ago. I would see salespeople where their comfort level was in the, their customer base.
Okay.
And it could be they could have 200 people in the office. They know two or three.
Hmm.
There's 190 other people that work there who know somebody else. So I always said that the more people I know in my accounts, the more they know me, the more I know about them, the more they know about me. And then I took this one step farther, and I said that the more people I know, the more people they know, more, and I multiplied it out that
The
way.
more you grow, as you lay it out, it becomes more clear, and I know where you're heading with it. But there's something comes from my perspective, at least, leadership.
Yeah.
Leaders also probably in your message you can reach leaders along the sales force because they have a quota to meet. They're under pressure, and you've been in the business and you know how it is.
Right.
So probably reaching leaders and giving them your new concept and transformational approach to sales and being empathetic. So probably they can also apply some of these techniques you share. They wouldn't have the same stress the workforce has. So it will at least lessen the burden on the sales force, and also they apply this new networking of the more you know, the more you grow. The more you know people, the more you know, add to your network. Not only know knowledge, but the more you know people, right? The more people you know, one person will tell another person, and word of mouth and other advertisement will lead the way into it. But I think leaders, so what comes to mind is where leaders must be aware of not a phenomena, but tragedy the sales force goes into, where they have to compete instead of collaboration. You compete for the account instead of saying, okay, let's sell from the heart and see what's the benefit of our consumer. How we have a customer base. Let's see what value we add to them. Let's sell them from the heart. The product we're going to sell anyway, but how can we sell it from the heart? So if you can create, I know that's where you're heading, but if you can create this culture and this mindset in the leaders, and then they will convey it and inspire their workforce as well.
So,
Are you
so
attempting to reach leaders as well in your approaches?
Yeah, and so spot on that you say that. I applaud you for saying it. Is I'm a big believer in this, that again, it's a saying, I made it up a long time ago, but it plays out, is leaders who lead with the heart, who develop a culture of heart, soon develop a sales team that leads and sells with the heart.
Good.
The way that leaders take care of their salespeople
Mm-hmm.
is the same way that salespeople are going to take care of their
Yes, the
customers.
customers. Bravo. Yes, I'm a
And
believer
and
of
and,
that.
and see, and that's what I want leaders. That's what I want leaders to really take away, is the culture that you develop is going to be taken out into the marketplace by your salespeople.
And he's going to share it with others and the consumers. And this is where they feel it, if it's genuine or not. And if it's genuine, you're going to create loyal customers. Otherwise, this company I don't want to deal with. And they will badmouth you. And we hear it all the time.
No, you hear it all the time, and you see it all the time. Another example of this is set aside like the hard aspect just for a second. Is unfortunately I see a lot of this happening. You have a lot of leaders who look at their sales team as revenue generating people, right? I understand that, right? I understand sales generates revenue. Totally get it.
Of course.
But when leaders look at their salespeople, when they look them in the eyes and they see dollar signs, game over.
See them as
When they look
numbers.
at their salespeople, when they look at salespeople as human, it
Then that's a different
changes the
story.
dynamic, it changes the conversation, because then the same can be said, right? At the end of Selling from the Heart, I have a manifesto. And one line in my manifesto says that selling from the heart, professionals lead with the heart and not the wallet. So when your salespeople go out in the marketplace, as you look at your salespeople as revenue generating people, and you look in their eyes and you see dollar signs, the same thing happens when your salespeople go out into the marketplace to sell. They look at your clients and your prospects with dollar signs, and they smell it.
The customers smell it.
The customers smell it
Yeah.
instantaneously.
Yes, you can say for sure this company sells from the heart. The reason I'm asking you this is because the mainstream culture is not a culture selling from the heart. They see the dollar sign before they see the human being and what value they add to them.
You know what? There's one company that comes to mind because it's very close to where I live. I mean, can I share the company name?
Yeah, sure.
Uh, I think the first one that comes to mind is a company in Ventura, California called Patagonia.
Well, mentioning this company and other companies like it on the show or probably your show, it's an honor. Actually, we should recommend such companies and we encourage them. Do you think Amazon sell from the heart? They have an excellent customer service.
You know what? They're doing something right. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to peel it back and look at their mission and look at their vision and look at some of their value statements.
Mhm.
But if there's one thing that I can applaud them for, because I'm all about this, is the experience. If there's anything that I can say about Amazon is they've captured the experiences and they've packaged those up in a way and they repurpose them out there. I mean, Amazon's everywhere.
Amazon is everywhere. True. Amazon, I'm, I'm a subscriber to most of its services and a big fan of its approaches. It's not selling from the heart, as far as I'm concerned. You know what matters, Larry, at the end? Shareholders are important. Consumer is important. Also employees. We have to care for our employees. As we sell from the heart and add value to the consumer and customer, we must also manage and lead from the heart. So employees are part of the equation. And I always, that's what I advocate for. Shareholders, yes. Consumer, yes. Employees too. And unfortunately, publicly, I say, Amazon failed to meet the demands of the employees. That's why there are always strikes and they put them on a stressful environment to create the experience we're enjoying, but at a cost. I wish they can find a way to add value to their employees along the way of adding value to the consumer. Just an observation. I wish we become more civilized to make them the standard. The reason we say it because I feel them and you feel them, and we like the experience they provided. We like the customer service they have and the approaches, but there's something missing.
Yeah.
So we call them on it because we want them to improve on that. And podcasts like this, and people like you that care for others, they care for the consumer and cares for the sales force. When we sound it together and we tell them change, I hope they do for the sake of our experience.
As I'm listening to what you're saying, there's actually one other company, if you allow me to share it, but before we, part is there's one company that's near and dear to me, comes to mind, that is the epitome of selling from the heart. Name of the company, they're out of Salt Lake City, Utah. The name of the company is called Send Out Cards.
So your advice here, when you sell from the heart, be genuine, be empathetic, be sincere, be authentic, no BS, just help others, help the consumer, and by adding value to their environment and to their life.
Correct. Because here's the big key takeaway on is the sale isn't over when the sale is over.
Yes.
Is, to me, that's when it begins. Now you got to live up to the expectations and exceed those expectations and create those experiences. And this is directed right at leadership, is lead with the heart, bring sincerity, bring substance to your sales team. Conversely, they will do the same thing. In a world where there's so much lack of trust, people's BS meters are so high, everyone's skeptical about everything. Those sales professionals, and it's those leaders that can go out in the marketplace and lead with sincerity, bring substance to the business table, bring their heart to the forefront, are going to set themselves apart from everybody else. They will change the conversations and how they're viewed.
That's nicely said. Where can they find Selling from the Heart? Where is it available? How can people find you?
They can find anything they want to find out about Selling from the Heart. They can go to our website at sellingfromtheheart.net. You can find the podcast on Selling from the Heart podcast on all your favorite podcast apps. And one last thing, if any of your listeners want any free resources and they have a smartphone, they can text the word heart HEART, so they could text the word heart 2100 and they can immediately have access to all kinds of free resources.
Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Enjoyed this chat we
My
have.
pleasure.
We had a smile and two. I like that.
It's all
Yeah.
good. It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
We'll see ya.